today's webinar. My name is Amanda Mascott. I'm the VP of Marketing and Technology with Dragonfly Strategists. I'm joined with our two lovely experts today, Tatiana Van Velzor, Head of Global Sales of Retailing at Sabre Hospitality, and we have Carol Helsel, Founder and CEO of Dragonfly Strategists. We're super excited to be back with Tatiana. We just did a webinar with her a couple months ago, which feels like it wasn't that long ago, but we're back with her. We were talking about hotel operational efficiency, and today we're going to do a little bit of different topic, more on upselling, retailing, and merchandising, and so what that all looks like from an experiential standpoint for our guests, and then for the hotel owner on the revenue side, of course. So we'll talk about some new performance metrics to consider and how we adapt to this and the future of what retailing looks like and adapting to new technologies in the space. And so we'll leave the last 10 minutes for Q&A. So please feel free in the chat to leave any questions that you have as we're going, as we go through these different topics, and we'll be sure to answer those at the end. So let's go ahead and get started today. Carol and Tatiana, the first question I'm going to tee up is, tell us a little bit about your passion and how you got entered into travel and hospitality.
So I can go first. I think it chose me, is what I used to say, is what I always say. I was born in a family where my parents had been travel agents, and before that, executives in airlines. And my godparents were hoteliers. And so I went to college for this. Pretty much the conversations growing up were about travel and places and food and beverage. And so it felt natural to me to get into this business. And I fell in love with hospitality. I kind of did internships in all of these different aspects of the industry, but hospitality won my heart a long time ago. And then when I decided that operations in hotels were no longer for me, I embraced the technology side of things and stayed within the industry, which makes me feel very fortunate that I've been able to live my life in this industry. It's all I know how to do.
Amazing. I love it. I love it. I wasn't born into hospitality. I actually went to college to major in communications and go on to be in radio and TV, and the TV station offered me about 50% less than the hotel to be on call 7 days a week versus Monday through Friday being a reservations manager. So I chose the hotel job, not thinking I would stay in it my entire life. And I have, and it's been such a journey. It's opened global experience for me when I worked for Mandarin Oriental long time ago in my 20s and got to travel the world. And I have developed the best relationships in hospitality because we're all hospitality people, which is about being hospitable and having relationships. And I think for a lot of years, I didn't realize what we do in hospitality, but Hilton Hotels Commercial taught me what we do in hospitality. I've held on to that ever since. We're in the business of making memories that last a lifetime. And I just love that. And so it's a huge passion, and I'm not going anywhere for a long time.
Yeah, the first company that I was at, they hired people that were outside of hospitality. And then here I am 10 years later. So
Awesome.
Once you get in, you never go back, I guess. But perfect.
It's too much fun.
Yes, it is.
And the operations side, Tatiana, is very challenging.
It can be grueling.
Yeah,
it can be.
So as we look at as our topic today, traditionally travel has been about the destination, but we've started to see a big shift in this. And so we're looking at the experiences. What do you think is driving this change, Tatiana?
Well, it's all about consumer behavior, right? How we are trained as consumers to interact with the world. If you think about concepts of streaming television and how things are put in front of you based on your preferences, customization, personalization. I was doing some research recently and I came across a statistics that over 60% of travelers start planning a trip without a destination in mind, but more focused on what it is that they want to live during that vacation, right? So Are you looking to lizard on a beach with crystalline waters, or are you looking for adventure and maybe some tracks and maybe, I don't know, people do crazy stuff like rock climbing and pendulum, but those experiences are out there, right? And very much people are choosing their destination based on those preferences. And so we see a shift in how people travel. There's also a brand new generation coming up, the Gen Zs that are getting into the job market, that are traveling, that have a very different view of the world, right? Sustainability is a big part of that. So the world has just changed and things evolve. And the way that traditional hospitality has been operating over, I don't know, the last century, has to evolve along with it. And that's what's driving the shift is the way that we interact with the world.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that from the perspective of the generational aspect, I think Gen Z has kind of led us part of the way here. I think the result of COVID is that people want to experience things in their life. And, there was all this pent-up demand for experiencing something other than your little core that you hung out with for 2 years. And I also believe that we've been trying for many years in the hospitality industry to get to one-to-one marketing, to get to customization of the travel experience. And I think that part of what drove hotels more in this direction is some of what Airbnb did with adding just the local content, the local hosts, the local activities, the ability to plan that experience within that technology platform. And I think it really opened our eyes up to what was possible as a hospitality industry. And then technology companies began investing in how do we do that? How do we accomplish that as a hotel industry? And so, of course, the all of this is about demand, and consumers are demanding that they're able to plan their vacation experiences in a different way now. And we as an industry need to be ready to accommodate that.
Yeah, definitely. Those are great points. So, Tatiana, how are you embracing this technology piece and shifting towards that at Sabre?
Well, I mean, I think that everyone now understands. If you haven't heard AI today, here's your bingo. AI is a huge shift, and so as this notion expands with the evolution of technology that allows hoteliers to effectively create a strategy for retailing, the vision that Sabre has and that we are fulfilling right now is that from the moment you shop all the way to the moment you've already left, or perhaps you're not even like my guest to begin with, I am going to be able to put an offer in front of you that feels compelling, that is driven by your preferences, that is driven by your interests, and that way the idea is growing revenues, right? The more offers you put in front of people at the right time of their journey. We always say, people are ready to shop when they're ready to make decisions. Sometimes, depending on where you're traveling, you're making plans months ahead of time. You may not be able to lock down an itinerary right then and there, but it's nice to know that you can do it all in one spot. And for hoteliers, again, it's us trying to catch up to airlines all over again. Airlines have been doing this for years, selling ancillaries. There's only so much you can do inside an airplane. You have to buy a seat
I
to
was
buy
going to
the
say that we're a
ancillary.
lot more fun. We're a lot more fun. We can provide a lot more fun for people than an
Exactly.
airline.
It's endless.
Yeah.
Imagine destination, it's endless.
Yeah, yeah. I think back to my days at Kimpton Hotels, and at that time, when we introduced our what was Kimpton in Touch, which became Kimpton Karma, we also introduced a lot of retail around that. So because we had very uniquely designed rooms, and people would walk in and be like, how can I buy that bedspread? How can I buy that record player? How can I buy that lamp? And so we began to have a retail space for that on our website, right? And then we did, wines of the world, and partnered with wineries because we were based in San Francisco, and we brought all of that retailing in. On the back end, it was hard. It was hard to execute. It was hard to create. It was hard to deliver, and required a lot of manual intervention. And so I think, to the creativity of lifestyle and boutique hotels, we've always wanted to generate that level of experience where the guest wants to take a piece of us home with them, whether it be the candle of the scent of the hotel, or whether it be activating a space for a party for someone that had not been activated before. So I think that it's been in our mindset for a long time. We just didn't have the ability to easily deliver on it. And so I think it's exciting what Sabre and a few other companies are doing with retailing, because it allows someone to use the shopping cart functionality. It's going to allow someone to separate their hotel stay from, their things that they want to purchase, and allow us to retail things in a completely unique and different way, which in the end is going to drive higher revenue, which is, of course, what owners want out of the asset.
And Carol, I'll say this. I had the pleasure of being with Scott Wilson, our president over at High Tech, and he was telling us, he was discussing different topics with different companies there that had pieces of retail. And you're right, we're starting to see pieces of this show up in different technologies. But we can say confidently that to date, Sabre has the most comprehensive offer because it has different pieces. So what I find interesting is that I love this movement of the industry, because we have been talking about it for a long time, and it's time that hospitality embraces this concept once and for all.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned that Sabre's been talking about this since 2015 and had a focus around this. So you guys are pretty mature in your thought process and development around this, whereas others are, much further behind. And I think that the ability for hotels to have the technology to support us growing revenue is just critical, because we've got to tap into other sources of revenue. We can only raise our ADR so high, and it's leveling out, and we're not going to see that growth on a go forward basis that we've seen the past couple of years. Owners are having to settle with that fact, even though they'd like it to be different, right? So it's up to us as hospitality leaders to figure out, how are we still going to deliver that value to owners? Where are the other sources of revenue going to come? Because labor costs are high, ADRs can only go so far, and so we've really got to think about retailing outside of just the hotel room.
And it's interesting you mentioned that, because I had a call recently with a customer that actually just jumped in from another conversation that he was having over this whole tax law coming out in California, and eventually, as I understand it, potentially federally. And they have the famous resort fee, et cetera. And he was saying this tool can literally you get bike rides included in your resort fee. Well, now you can sell bike rides as its own separate revenue stream, because if you're going to do away with, he called it junk fees, you have to figure out a way to make up for that revenue, because after all, that's revenue.
Yep. And we have to have a strategy for that, because it's coming. I mean, regardless of how much we want to try to hang on to that, it's coming. And we used to charge fees for internet. We used to charge fees for some of the things that are included, right, in the resort fee. Now, I always thought it was funny when resort fees were introduced in a downtown hotel. It just made it seem really interesting to me. And we tried different names: facility fees, benefits fees, different types of things, right? But the reality is, this is most likely going to go away, either globally or at least here in North America, right? So we need a plan. So what's our strategy? How do we have a strategy to make up that revenue and still grow the profits of our hotel owner, and deliver on the promise that we've given them for revenue?
No, that's great. And I think that's a really great segue into our next topic, is on KPIs. So how do we shift as we look at new revenue sources, and we look at removing kind of that resort fee and doing these add-ons of retailing? What KPIs should people look for, and what should they set benchmarks for?
Well, I think, we've got to move to that as an industry, and we are going to need, someone to be providing that data, right? So that we can measure it, and measure it against our comp set. But obviously it's profit per available room, it's profit per square foot, it's revenue per square foot, because if we can activate spaces and we can sell retail separate from hotels, from a hotel room, then we're going to have a lot more revenue per available square foot. And, I think that we need to start thinking about it as well as not just revenue, but profit, because profit is what owners want. It's what they expect. So, how is it that we can grow that profitability? So when we're looking at experiences, we need to know, what does it cost us to deliver that experience? Because the last thing we want to do is deliver experience that costs us 10% more than we're charging for it, right? So again, revenue management, pricing, all of those pieces are important. And then the distribution of it that Sabre partners with us for, right? So I just think, we have to not just assume RevPAR is the be all end all. It isn't, and it hasn't been for a while. We just don't have necessarily, all of us don't have good reporting to give us, where are we actually at with profit per available room or per square foot? Where are we with revenue per square foot? So, we're going to have to do some development with our BI partners and with partners like CoStar and different folks. How are we going to be able to measure that? I know HotStats does a lot with looking more at the profit side of things than just the revenue side of things. But, we've got to start measuring things differently, right, Tatiana?
100%. And you hit the nail on the head when you mentioned ADR is stabilizing. I think a few folks that stayed open in some destinations during pandemic enjoyed the hyper ADR swoosh that came in, and that has come down. But at the end of the day, ADR rate wars, it's not going to give you very much more to squeeze. So TravPAR is one of those KPIs that we keep hearing more and more about. And you're right, BI is essential. The good news is that Nexus Retailing does have some good reporting tools. So, we're hoping that as we evolve and as we get more adoption, that we're going to be partnering with our hotel partners to understand exactly what are those needs, so that we can make sure that everyone has the right data in front of them to make informed decisions.
That's great. So Tatiana, when we had our initial conversation prepping for this webinar, we had talked about Starbucks and how you can create 83,000 different beverages.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's true. That sounds insane. I'm sure it is, but how do you think that's evolving into hospitality, and what can we do to, every stay is a new experience, and you can really create that as we start to look at this. And so what are your thoughts around that?
So this stat about Starbucks, I heard a long time ago, I want to say 2019, maybe even
it's
before.
Probably evolved then to 200.
Yeah, it's probably changed. But it was exactly a presentation, and it's about how many combinations between all the syrups and the types of coffees and the types of milks and all of this different possibilities that it's offered, that you can potentially create that many variations of a drink. And they sell coffee and tea. Expand that to destinations and traveling and all of the different variations that you can do. It's insane to think of it's as big as our globe, because literally that's what we're talking about. Traveling, we're talking about everything that you can experience on Earth. And then I challenge us to think about, how can there not be opportunity in a world that seems almost infinite in possibilities of customization and personalization and taste, right? In travel, not one size fits all.
Absolutely. And I think what's interesting too is sometimes we think about this from a leisure standpoint. and not as much from a group standpoint. But I just toured one of the hotels we work with here in Denver because Dragonfly is working on our global meeting next year. And I loved how Michelle, the director of sales there, was talking about the experiences that they offer that go along with a group. So they have a lot of artists that are in the source, and they can actually have this amazing artist come in and do a piece of art while
Nice.
with the group and explain what he's doing. They do these, cocktail training sessions with groups to teach them, and even doing team development around it, right? And so I think that there's not only opportunity with transient business, but I think there's opportunity with group business for hotels to keep those groups in-house instead of going
Yeah,
out for that experience by being creative and offering some really unique
100%.
things that the groups can do together while still on site at the hotel.
I would there go, I 100% agree. And I would go even further and say there's opportunity in corporate as well. I'll tell you a story. There's a hotel that I love to go to when I stay in Bogota, and they have a perfect little corner in the lobby that I like to squat all day and work when I'm in transit. And it's perfect because it's right next to the lobby. And I get seriously bummed out when I get there and there's somebody sitting on my table. That's, I consider it fine.
Because it's your table, has your
Because
name
it's
on
my
it.
table. It's my little corner there. It's perfect. It's private. Hotel isn't monetizing on that. Why couldn't they sell some kind of a reservation for that spot that includes, coffee or whatever? What if I'm having a business meeting and that spot, housekeeping? When I travel for business, I do not disturb the entire time I'm there. I very rarely get housekeeping when I'm traveling in corporate because my suitcase explodes in the room. But besides the point, I think that the hoteliers don't realize how much they already retailing. Policies is a good example. Early check-ins. No sane front desk person is holding a guest at the desk if you have a room ready. You're going to check them in.
Yeah, United Airlines. I just switched to United because I moved to Denver recently. So sorry, American, but I switched to United and they matched my status, thankfully. And now I get to book direct, which is super exciting when you lived in a small town. But I noticed one of the things I noticed on United, American used to just let you hold for 24 hours, right? So you could just hold your ticket. Well, with United, you can pay a fee to hold it. Like you can hold that rate and that ticket for like 3 days, 7 days, 14 days. So if you're uncertain, and so they've monetized even holding the ticket, right?
Your indecision.
Yes, and I did it because I wanted to hold that price for a client who hadn't made a decision for sure that we were coming like 2 weeks later. And I'm like, I know the fares are just going to go up, so let me just pay $14.95 to hold it and save them money in the long run. So I think there are things like that we've got, like you said, policies and things that are valuable to the guest, right, that we can monetize and not be in your face monetize like nickel and diming, but be this is guaranteeing you what you need in order to have a good business trip, for example. I know we're supposed to get to questions, Amanda. I think Tatiana and I could talk for like 8 hours about this.
Easy.
I'll hand it back to you because we could just keep
it's such
going.
an important topic. I mean, as we think about other ways, as you mentioned, ADR, we can only climb so high. Like, how do we really make our hotels profitable and our owners happy? And so I just want to remind everyone, please feel free to put any questions in the chat. We did just get one. So someone wants to know if there are any other ideas around how and what to retail at a hotel.
Well, it's endless, right? You have potential for room service, spas, beach cabanas, day use. I've seen gorilla tours. I've seen experiences like beach picnics or what Carol was describing, what is a barista experience or cocktail?
Yes. Yeah, retail. I mean, there's all the retail that hotels can have.
Merch, the robes and whatever.
Yeah. When I worked for the owners of the Hollywood Roosevelt, I mean, we literally, in a very subtle way, monetized everything in the room. You could buy everything in the room, right? And so if you've got a cool lifestyle hotel, think about what you could do with the retail side of that. I think also just things that are high profit, cabanas, bottle service. Those are high profit, and being able to book those ahead of time, to plan your itinerary as someone who's wanting to seek an experience are critical. As you mentioned, there are so many, I think, options with policies that we could do.
Well, when you can connect with your community, for example, local artists, right?
Yes.
Local events. Maybe there is a winery where your hotel is that you can jointly promote some kind of an experience, a cool day.
Yeah, and it's a
endless.
combination, right, of driving revenue and driving guest experience, right? So maybe everything is not going to have a huge high profitability margin, but maybe the KPI is the return guest to your brand, or the return guest, or your loyalty, or your or your guest sentiment is your KPI, because they're so much happier that they're telling everyone else. So we have to look at all of those different aspects, and being able as a hotel company to deliver a unique experience to our guests is going to get the right guest sentiment and is going to garner loyalty.
And Tatiana, do you see that when somebody's planning their trip, that they're more likely to add on all of these different experiences ahead of time rather than waiting till they get to the hotel and planning their trip?
I mean, I think there's travelers and there's travelers, right? There's people who enjoy I'm not going to speak for everyone there. I'm sure there are people out there that prefer to just get to a destination and figure out what they're going to do there. I'm not one of those people. I personally I don't plan every step of the way, but I personally like to map out at least the big ticket items that I want to hit while I'm on vacation. But what you typically see is on a leisure resort space, 2 weeks prior to arrival seems to be the sweet spot for sort of building this itinerary. I think that it's about giving people options, right? Put it in front of them at time of booking. Put it in front of them before they arrive. Put it in front of them after they've left. It's about creating multiple opportunities for revenue generation, not disrupting any type of booking path. But think about this. What we're coming up with now is a complete turnaround of the narrative. In the next release in October, we're launching what we call standalone. So if I went online to seek for a rock climbing adventure and I landed on this experience that is being offered by a hotel that in their destination, now I can look at this and say, hey, look at that. This is a cool hotel. Maybe I'll book a room in this hotel because it's connected to this experience. And the room potentially can become the ancillary of the experience itself, right? So,
and I was just going to add to that. We have to, and I know we're out of time, but we have to think about too, how as marketers, do we make this scarcity thought with, like if you don't book now, there won't be a spa appointment available. Like, so how do we communicate that without being, again, in your face? But, I think that being able to change that customer behavior, now we have the technology to do it. Now, how do we change the behavior and how do we drive that with our messaging?
Well, and it's very likely scenario. It's happened to me recently that I got to the hotel and I didn't know they had a spa and I wanted to get a spa and I couldn't because there was nothing available for me. So it happens. And now something that's supposed to be a good experience, it's going to become sort of like a sore spot for the guest.
Yep.
Absolutely. Any other closing thoughts as we wrap up? I know we're at time. If anyone else has any questions, we'd love to answer, but any closing thoughts, Tatiana, Carol?
No, I ask everyone to keep their eyes on us. We're on fire. We have a lot of cool stuff coming out. I am happy to chat with anyone that wants to know more. But really, I've been fortunate enough to be part of this process at Sabre from the ideation stages, and I'm so very proud of what we have. It's definitely a shift for the industry, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I would just say, I think you need to create a strategy. If you need help with that, we're Dragonfly Strategists for a reason. But, we partner very closely with Sabre. We've had a lot of input into what they're doing with this product and a lot of insight into it, and are super excited about the possibilities. But I think it's very important that you develop a strategy around how you're going to implement it. You can you can crawl, walk, run with it. So you can start small and then add as you go through this. But it's certainly something that needs to be on your radar and needs to have a strategy, because you owe it to yourself and your owners to do that, so that you can drive even more success for yourself and your management company, your owners, all the key stakeholders.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. We appreciate your time today. And thank you everyone for joining. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.